will you, on October 21st, will you give away all your worldly possessions since you won't need them anymore?
Well, but you see, I get that asked all the time. I don't need I'm still living, I still have to live in a house. I still have to pay my bills. I still have to drive a car. And when Christ comes, whatever I have left, I'm going to leave behind. So why would I get rid of it? I still have to live till the end. The end is 5 months away now. So why would I give it all away? I don't understand that question.
How about on the day before, on the 20th?
I'm sorry?
How about on the day before? Would you give all your possessions away?
Well, but what would be the value of that? Why would I give it away? Because if it's Judgment Day, it means that it's the end of the world. And so whoever I gave it to, what could they do with it? That doesn't follow. I just have no interest in that kind of a question. Yes.
Mr. Camping,
yeah.
Christian Post. You just said that your next prediction is October 21st, right? Well, many people sold their property for May 21st, and what can they do right now? They're flat broke. What will you take responsibility for that?
Let me explain something. We in Family Radio never tell anyone what they should do with their possessions. That's totally between them and God. And I get people call me sometimes and say, what should I do? I said, please pray about it. I'm not going to give you any advice. And it is true that a few people have. One thing I notice, however, and that is that when they talk to one person who maybe has sold his possession, and they then magnify that like everybody's doing that. That isn't true at all. That isn't true at all. There are a few people that did, and undoubtedly, but it doesn't. And there are people who, for example, have I know a few of them that have given up their jobs in order to work for Family Radio, give their time, and they do it because they love the Lord, and they're getting the spiritual blessing of it. But that doesn't mean everybody's doing that. Not a bit.
Mr. Camping, you were very certain before the 21st of May, and you said that God had opened your spiritual eyes. Yet now this weekend you say that you've learned a lot about the Bible, a lot that was hidden. What is there to say that there's still a lot to be learned about the 21st of October?
Help me, Pia.
He's saying that you said that the Lord has opened your eyes to May 21, but now you're saying, and you were sure that May 21 was the day, but now you're saying October 21 is the day.
But we've always said October 21 was the day. That's not new. I'm not setting a new date at all. I'm only saying that we didn't understand altogether the spiritual meaning of what May 21 was a day when Christ came and put the world under judgment. Absolutely. There is a big change in the world. They're under judgment where they were not on May 20. They are under judgment. And that hasn't changed. It's only that we're seeing this as a spiritual thing happening rather than a physical thing happening. But the timing, the structure, the proofs, the signs, none of that has changed at all. None at all. And it's just amazing what God has shown us insofar as the proofs and the signs.
Mr. Camping, is it fair to the people who have committed to you and who take your word as doctrine, for them to lead their lives in this way and to then take your apologies for misreading the Bible and expectations that perhaps the date will come later? Do you feel any personal responsibility for all of these people who are putting their hopes and their trust in you?
You know, if you have listened at all to Family Radio, I have said it so many times. I am not the authority. I am not the authority. The Bible is the authority. Now, I know there are people who trust their teacher because he has been, whoever their teacher might be, because they found that he was trustworthy in the past. That's a problem. But I can't change that. I can simply say that very accurately again and again. I am not the authority. I will simply show you where to look in the Bible in order to see this or see that. But all I am is a humble teacher. I search the Bible. I search the Bible. Listen, I read you a letter from one of our listeners. I happen to know this person. This person is not a theologian at all, and yet I listened to it because this person made some very good statements. In fact, I'm a little surprised that how right those sound. Now, I'm not accepting it right down the line. This is something that we'll be studying, and others will be studying. We're trying to be very careful, but the structure of God's timeline has not changed at all. Not at all.
You have no recognition that there's a possibility you can make still another mistake. No recognition that there's a possibility you can make still another mistake and mislead other folks.
There is no possibility that you might make it. Well, my life and the life of many others is we keep studying the Bible, and if we found that we made a mistake, immediately we're going to correct that. Of course, we have not made a mistake insofar as the timeline, the unfolding. We have not done our correct homework in understanding the nature of May 21, but it is the fact is there. It was not a judgment day that was visible. It's an invisible judgment day. It's a spiritual judgment day, but it is judgment day. The world is under judgment today, just like the churches were first under judgment for a period of 2,300 days. And then when the judgment on the world was lifted and God began to bring the gospel again there and people began to become saved, their judgment stayed on the churches and remained to this day. It has not been lifted exactly, and that's why we see the terrible, terrible changes in the churches of our day. They're still under judgment.
Mr. Camping, previous to the 21st of May, people have asked you about the spiritual judgment day, the spiritual earthquake, and you were very explicit at the time, explaining that you have been saying that
I can only tell you this, that I have been a full-time volunteer for the whole duration.
You didn't hear me. Mr. Kevin, wait. I didn't understand your question.
Let me finish my question. So previous...
She has actually asked some questions. I'll typed up, and I'll get you a question next.
What I meant to ask...
I haven't got the question.
Wait. Who's going to go first? Someone's got to go first.
Yeah, excuse me, Mr. Camping. Sorry to confuse things here. Thank you for having us. I wanted to ask how much Family Radio as an organization has spent on publicizing May 21st as Judgment Day. I know you had $104 million about in assets in 2009. How much of that remained?
I don't know. I haven't kept track of that. I have just been very careful to watch that we were able to that we still had enough money to pay our bills, and we still have been able to do that. But it was interesting. Somebody must have checked when our accountants made. And incidentally, let me tell you something. 52 years ago, when we organized Family Radio, there was no law anywhere that said we had to have a public accountant go over our books. But right from the first year, we employed a certified public accounting firm to independently go over our books every single year, and it costs us a lot of money to do this. But because we have tried desperately always to be absolutely honest and accurate in all that we do, and we don't fudge anything at all. We happen to be nonprofit, so we don't have to pay taxes. That helps us to make the money, stretch the money. But it really amused me a little bit. I saw a news article where they said, "Oh, Family Radio took in $100 million in the last 7 years." Like, oh, they're just covered with cash. Look at $100 million. they fail to realize that it cost that $100 million. Most of it was spent to send out the gospel. That's why it comes to us. It's not profit. It is to be used as efficiently as possible. And you know how many organizations reach the whole world with the gospel like we do. Right now we've been publishing in 75 different languages. Man, I'll tell you, that costs a lot of money. And we spend every nickel that we can and still be able to have a good credit rating. We have a very excellent credit rating. But we're not in the business for money. As I've said again and again, I'm a full-time volunteer. Man, if I would, in my position, doing the open forum 5 nights a week and being general manager and president of Family Radio, if I were a typical organization, what salary should I be getting every year? Now tell me, how many? You look at what these public officials get and the CEOs of private companies and so on. And then multiply that by 50 years, and then how much money have I contributed? I'm not saying this to brag or anything at all. I'm just trying to get a little bit reality into this business. This business is God's business. He's the CEO. I'm a servant of His, and I try to be as faithful as possible. I've given money or loaned money when I saw that I had the only reason I loaned money. It was reported in one of the issues that I had loaned $178,000. The only reason I didn't give it is because what if we would have an emergency? What if my wife suddenly got a severe disease, or I did? Where would we go for cash? We could legitimately ask Family Radio without having them pay it, just to return some of the money so that we had put on deposit there. And so this, people talk about money, and it's alien to me. I'm not interested in money.
How about
right? Previously,
hold on, wait. Go ahead.
Thank you. Previously to the 21st of May, people have asked you about a spiritual earthquake. And at that time, you were very explicit. You said it will not be a spiritual earthquake. There is no chance whatsoever that it will be a spiritual earthquake. It will be definitely a physical earthquake. How do you reconcile that with what you are saying now?
Because you see, when we study the Bible, we don't know everything. The Bible is very complex. I challenge any one of you. You start reading the book of Jeremiah, verse by verse, or any other book of the Bible, but take a book like Jeremiah, and you start reading it and read every word, and then try to decide, what is God saying? What is God saying? I don't know if any of you have ever tried that, but that's a very good lesson for you to test just what the Bible is, and you'll find that you'll read verse after verse, and you'll wonder, what is God talking about? And yet this is the way we have to search out the Bible. It's very slow and very tedious, and yet we have to do it, and we don't always hit the nail on the head the first time. We were a long ways toward the right. We said that Judgment Day was going to be here. It is there, but it's not physically at this time. It is spiritual, but Christ has come. It is Judgment Day. We have not been wrong about that at all. But
if I understand you well, you are saying in a way that we as mere humans are not really capable of really understanding the Bible. Is that what you are saying?
You are correct. I use the illustration. The Bible gives us this wonderful illustration. A lot of us have heard about the Apostle Paul. He is one of the. He wrote the letter to the Ephesians, to the Philippians, to the Colossians, to the. He has written a whole lot of the material in the New Testament, and it was all dictated to him from God. But he was trained as a Pharisee, and he was a very intelligent Pharisee, highly schooled. The Bible claims that he was trained at the feet of Gamaliel, and then in the language of the Bible, that must have been one of the highest grade schools. And he was determined to serve God. Oh, he was determined to serve God. And so, yet, something was wrong. He was living there with people who had just heard about Christ, and many of them, fellow Jews, were looking at Christ as their Messiah. And Paul was at that time his name was Saul. His name was called Saul of Tarsus, and he was so determined. These people are false. They got to be killed if they don't renounce their ways. And he was going to Damascus to haul some of the Jews there in Damascus to Jerusalem, put them on trial, and have them killed. And on the way to Damascus, God struck him down, and he was blinded. And he heard God speaking, "Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me?" And then God said, "I am Jesus whom thou persecutest," and so on. Then he came into Damascus, and was there blind, and praying and praying. Finally, Ananias, a preacher, came over to minister to him, and while he's ministering to him, we read there that scales fell off his eyes. That's a big statement, because right after that, he was preaching Christ, 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 Christ in Damascus almost instantly, because suddenly his spiritual eyes were open. That's the problem. We not only have to study the Bible and study the Bible and study the Bible, comparing Scripture with Scripture, but we have to pray and hope and beg the Lord, open my spiritual eyes that I might understand, because the Bible is a living book. It's not an ordinary book at all.
How do you feel about the lady who tried to take her life and her two daughter's life? How do you personally feel about that?
How do you feel about this woman that took her own life?
She tried to take her life and her two daughters' life.
She tried to take her life, and remember...
I heard that someplace, that there's a woman who killed her two children. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Did she kill them or attempted to?
I'm sorry?
She attempted to. She did not kill her children.
She took it in a literal
way. She attempted to.
She attempted to.
Oh, okay. Oh, my, that makes me feel better, because death is, murdering is terrible. It's contrary to everything the Bible teaches. That would have been a horrible thing if she had done that. That would make me weep. That would fill me with sorrow that she would do that. The Bible teaches that we are to save life, not kill. If there's going to be death, leave it to God. God knows who he wants to kill and make alive. That's his business, not our business. And so I'll tell you, what you just told me is a great relief to me, because I'd be sick at heart if someone had done such a stupid thing.
Do you take any responsibility for that, though? Do you take any responsibility for that?
Mr. Cantor, sorry? Do you take any responsibility for that fact?
I don't have any responsibility. I can't be responsibility of anybody's life. I'm only teaching the Bible. I'm not teaching what I believe, or that I'm the authority. I'm simply telling this is what the Bible says, and I don't have spiritual rule over anybody except my wife.
Considering
because as the head of the house, I have spiritual rule over my wife a little bit, not a whole lot, but she's a wonderful wife, so it doesn't require much. But the fact is, like in a church, the elders and the deacons and the pastor, they have the spiritual oversight of the members of the church. God ordained that. But the fact is that in family radio, we have the spiritual rule over nobody. We don't have a spiritual rule over our staff, any of our staff, whatever. We have people who agree with what we're teaching. We have people who don't agree. We don't have any spiritual rule. All we're doing is teaching the Bible, and the Bible has the spiritual rule, not what we say.
You have not actually apologized publicly, have you? Are you
prepared to ask your question? Just wait.
Are you prepared to apologize?
You're going to come in
Okay.
Hold on, we have to pause for a moment.
Maybe next after.
Oh, fuck this.